This is Wednesday, the 15th. We're here once again. You can see behind me we have a Kenya flag, okay? And it's very, very red. That's because today we're celebrating Jamuhuri. So Jamuhuri was actually on the 12th of December. That's when we celebrate our Jamuhuri as in Kenya. But because the show is on a Wednesday, so it's the 15th. So we are still in Jamuhuri spirit. And that's why you also see my lovely dress is Kenya, because I support Kenya. I am Kenya. We say it in Swahili, Kenya Damu. Kenya Damu means I'm a Kenya blood, right? And the reason why we have so much red today is because our topic today is all about the freedom fighting, people who fought in Kenya. Of course, a lot of blood was shed for us to get independence. And that's why today we're here to just talk about our history, talk about what happened to our people. How did we come from here to there? A happy Kenya, a Kenya that people were dying, and then a Kenya now. So that's what we're just here to talk about, and to just teach our children or our youths or even old people out there who don't know anything about our history. Because the 12th of December is a very important day for us to learn our history. Forget now they've turned it into trade, drinking, and everybody's doing their things, and we are forgetting the actual important people who we are supposed to be celebrating today. And in the studio I have Kamau. He plays Kamau. He's not really Kamau. He's going to introduce himself, but I know somebody might say he's not a Kenyan. Of course he's not a Kenyan, but he's a professional actor, because what we're trying to do with the play that we wrote about the history of Kenya, because we wanted it executed 100% to the toe, the way it was, we had to get a professional actor. And we put the word out there, and the only professional actor we got was a Nigerian. That is not about where you come from. It's about executing what happened in Kenya. So his part is the Kamau in the play. I also have on Zoom a lady called Vuvu. I love her name, but she's Mama Nyambura as well. And the same thing goes again. These are professional actors, and we put it out there. No Kenyan came in front to say, I'm a Kenyan, I can act, but we needed to execute the story. So we have Vuvu as well. She's going to introduce herself further. So guys, so thank you very much for coming today. And also have Nyambura from Kenya. She's in Kenya. She's going to join us as well very soon, because she's on the way. You know how Kenya is. And she's going to join us as well. And she's also going to tell us more about the history of Kenya. So guys, stay tuned. Do not go anywhere today. We're here. So don't go anywhere. I'm just going to let my friend here introduce himself. Kamau.
Good evening all. My name is Tai Ola Ulutayo. I play Kamau in the play, in the drama, in the show, in the epic drama that we are going to do soon. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And you're an actor, so tell us a little bit more about your acting background.
Yes, I studied drama I graduated almost 35 years ago. I had my master's in communication arts and another master's in applied theater, and I've been practicing. I've been a producer, I've been an actor, I've been a writer. Right now in the UK, I'm undergoing my PhD studies, though I still do acting on the side, and that is why we got together.
Yes. So thank you very much. And that's why we got you, because we want this thing executed properly, and we know that you can do the part, because I've seen you doing it, and sometimes you even scare us when we're doing it. We're like, calm down, it's not that day yet. Okay, and we also have Vuvu as well on Zoom. So Vuvu, can you introduce yourself, please?
Hi, I'm Namonde Vuyolwetu Joya, and Vuvu comes from my middle name, which is Vuyolwetu, which means our happiness. I'm originally from South Africa, living here in the UK, and I've acted, I guess, for the whole of my life, if I can say so. When I was younger, I was in a theatre production at Baxter Theatre, which is one of the biggest theatres in Cape Town, South Africa. I then moved over to the UK, where I undergone acting with a training acting coach. And my last production actually was just before the pandemic. We did a theatre production in Greenwich Theatre, and that was the Martin Luther King for Black History Month, focused on all the activities that happened around there. So I'm very passionate about being in productions that have got to do with the history of Black people and how we've come such a long way. So it's really my honor to be part of this production, The Dark Hour of Victory and Kenya's Independence, and to execute the part I'll be playing, which is Mama Nyambura. I've got a very strong character daughter who is such a warrior in the production, in the play, and she says one thing that I really love about her lines, which is, I'd rather live on my feet than live on my knees. So she'd rather stand and fight for what she knows is right for her than living on her knees and constantly begging in this space where, the white people were taking over and they were really just doing atrocities within the space of Kenya's independence. So we're here celebrating today 58 years of Kenya, and I look forward to this conversation.
Okay, thank you very much. I am so excited, by the way. And I always say that before you start something, I know the other day people are talking about the difference between, if there's a church, if you see a church and you see a child in the streets dying, where would you give your money? And I say, first of all, you need to analyze what is church. First of all, you need to understand what is church before you decide where am I going to give my money, and analyze also the dying child. Who is that dying child? So it's the same thing as Jamhuri. When it comes to Jamhuri, first of all, we need to understand what is Jamhuri. And because for me, and I know there's a lady who's going to join us as well from Kenya, I hope she will, she was very angry, and a lot of people as well who've been so angry about these celebrations of Jamhuri, because we've forgotten the genesis of Jamhuri. We've replaced it with trade. We have, I'm so upset because I don't understand. We have 365 days in a year, right? We can use the 364 days to talk about trade, to talk about relationship between Kenya and any other country in the world. Just one day, we should honor the people who fought for us. And by us not mentioning their names, by us not talking about them, generation and generation to come, they'll be forgotten totally, because they've been forgotten already. Some of them live in very, very bad states in Kenya. They live like the animals, like nobody cares about them. And I'm thinking, these people fought for us. They lost their parents, their mom, sister, brother, child, so that we can have a better Kenya. But that better Kenya that they fought for, we've forgotten them. We've replaced the day that we're supposed to talk about them with things that, yes, those things matter a lot, because we need our economy to grow. But if we take only one day from 365, will that destroy our economy? Just one day. What do you think about this?
Yeah, I doubt it. When people forget their history, then I'm sorry to say, I won't say they are lost, they are on the road to being lost. Because there is a legacy they should give children to come. You mentioned the fact that there are young ones today who have no idea how Kenya got where she is today. And that's a very sorry thing. All of Africa, African history should be taught right from the primary school, especially so that people will know the road we have plied. People will know the sufferings that those who got us where we are today have gone through. People have paid with their lives. People have paid with their all. And yet, we want to pretend that didn't happen. That is a shame. It is a shame.
Vuvu, what would you say about that?
I think also in the process of then replacing, a celebration of remembrance of people that died and put their lives down to see an independent Kenya today, it then also, the legacy of, it just takes away from the legacy of Kenya. And even as a Kenyan, then outside of Kenya, you don't have that pride and that pride to say, this is what makes me who I am.
Yes.
And in that process, you lose your sense of identity. And rightfully so, then when you have lost the sense of your identity, even in the places that you infiltrate in the world and wherever you go and you travel, even if you are locally in Kenya, then you don't really have a space to sort of be and to express, the goodness, the fullness of who you are. So in a sense, you've lost a part of who you are, and that's just really a sad thing that it's moving away from celebrating the legends, and then moving away to trade, because then the world is just then going to become, and it is becoming, and as we can see, such a place where it's all about the economy.
Yes.
It's not the economy of the soul, the economy of the person. It's the economy of monetary terms, and who benefits from from this economy anyway.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. So just to clarify what Jamhuri is actually a Swahili word that means republic, and the holiday is meant. So again, it's meant, that meant word is, it stood out for me, because it said it's meant to officially mark the date when Kenya became a republic on the 12th December 1964, just 1 year, 6 months after gaining internal self-rule on the 1st June 1963 from the British. And because we all know that the British are the ones that colonized Kenya. So it's meant to officially mark the date and to celebrate that day. And to celebrate that day is to remember what happened on the day. But it never happens like that. Now we've misplaced everything. We've forgotten the heroes that died for us. So now we're just going to talk about teaching our people, our youths, and those people out there who don't know nothing about the history of Kenya. In fact, today I was talking to a Kenyan lady, and all she remembered when I told her, I've done this plays about the Mau Mau and everything. She said, oh, the Mau Mau, where have I heard that word? And I'm thinking, you are a Kenyan, for crying out loud. But I cannot blame her. It's because they don't tell us anything. They don't teach us anything. But I think we have to take it upon ourselves to also want to know why, how, who fought for us, how did we get here. For somebody who is over 40 to tell me, where have I heard that name? It's embarrassing. So now, Vuvu, we are going from the beginning or before the beginning. Where do we start? 1886.
Yeah, so in 1886 is when Britain signed a deal with Germany to divide up East Africa. And one of the territories that were being divided is Kenya, of course. The British brought about thousands of Indians to build East African railways, many of whom are still in Kenya today and carrying on the businesses they've started in 1886.
Wow. And that's why sometimes I wonder, why do we have so many Indians in Kenya? So that is how the Indians actually came to be, because in 1886, when the British signed a deal with the Germans to divide East Africa, and Kenya, of course, was one of the territories, when they brought all these Indians to build the railway, then they stayed and they started business. And now they actually claim, most of them, because it's a long time ago, so we know that most of them were born in Kenya, but it's just the fact that the way most of them, I'm not saying all of them, I'm saying most of them treat Kenyans in their own country. If you go to all these like shops, high street, where they've got a lot of businesses, so those Indians, they still have those businesses because that was the foundation. So when they were born, their children were born, they were born into business, because that's what their great-grandparents went to do in Kenya. So they have all these, especially in the streets, they have shops, it's Indians in India. They treat those Kenyans so bad. You see somebody say, "Where, boy, kujapa, boy, where?" Boy is like, just an insult, to be honest. And they just have to do it, because if you don't do it, they'll fire you. You have a family to feed. What would you say about that?
It's quite distasteful that in this day and age, some people will still treat people like that. The last time I heard of such was during the apartheid system in South Africa.
Yeah.
And it was all over East and Southern Africa. I am from West Africa. They didn't really take root. But in the Eastern and Southern African region, segregation was quite much. I remember we read the novel Zambia Shall Be Free, and Kenneth Kaunda spoke about shops where they couldn't go, he was standing in front of a shop one day, and a white guy went in with a dog. In fact, the notice was dogs not allowed. And at that time, they had already started the independent struggle. So Kenneth Kaunda and some friends now decided to go into the shop. They said, "You are not allowed." He said, "Why?" He said, "Look at the sign, dogs not allowed." So which means Africans were regarded as dogs. But then, of course, Zambia moved past that. They've got independence. South Africa, that took so long under white rule, are also independent. I cannot imagine the situation now in South Africa where a white man would treat a black in that manner. Not now to talk of Kenya, where Indians will not do that. So I think such should be fought. Of course, not with arms, but with intellectual discussion and with, a lot of awareness. Let people know that this is bad. So people might be used to it. They might never even see the difference. Or
I don't think.
Except those of us from outside who say, no.
Yeah,
you can't call you boy. And you won't be surprised. That person called boy might be somebody like 49, 59 years old.
I mean, like your grandma, your grandpa, or your dad or your mom.
So it's a derogatory word, and it's a derogatory treatment which all
diminishing
Kenyans
totally
should denounce.
And like we said, we're not saying all of them, but we're saying most of them, because I've seen almost every shop I enter in Kenya, I just see the way they talk to us, and I want to intervene, but then I can't, because the person that I'm trying to help is the person who tell me, stop, just leave it, leave it. So I'm like, okay, let me mind my beeswax, but I'm not happy with what's happening. And that is why today when I was talking to this lady in Kenya, and she was so upset with what's going on, and I was like, well, someone needs to say something. We need to talk, because if we don't talk, that's how it continues. But we need to talk to the right people as well who can hear us. So Vuvu, we go now to 1952. Right, so now we're moving forward, we're moving past, because today we're talking about the history of Kenya. So we move forward to 1952, where Princess Elizabeth. So right now we've gone to 1952, where we see the relationship between the Kenya and the British monarchy. So in 1952, we see Princess Elizabeth. At that time, she's now a queen, but before she became a queen, she was only 25 years old, and the dad was meant to go to Kenya to a state visit, but he was sick. So he sent Princess Elizabeth on his behalf. But while Princess Elizabeth was there on the Treetops Hotel, that's where she lived in Kenya, in the Treetops Hotel, the dad passed on. So when the dad passed on, she became the queen. So we always say that a princess climbed a tree, because that Treetops Hotel, a princess, but came down a queen. So that relationship between Britain and Kenya at that time was really, really good. And then we now fast forward to October 1952, October the 20th, and then now the war starts. So, sweetheart, Vuvu, what can you just think? What can you think that happened between the princess, 1952, going to Treetops Hotel, going back to Britain because the dad died? Now she's a queen, and then now in October the war starts.
I mean, I would be careful when I tread on that, because there aren't any factual information as to
on that one,
as to how the administration of the war came about. Having these events having followed each other, of the queen having gone there for a state visit. But what I do know is that there were actually people who are employed to make sure that they are benefiting from Kenya. They were seeing Kenya as a commodity, as a place that they can come and rip and take away everything that it has, all its natural resources and its riches. And that's because they saw the African who was peaceful in their own estate as being foolish and not being economically minded to turn these resources around and make something of it. And now you know, a logical thinking person would think that, what was it in the visit then that would have coincided with what had happened? You know, because we are here smiling and we're welcoming and we're loving people whose missions and agendas are not necessarily the same the same mission and agenda that we have. There's a proverb called Ubuntu, which I think is also well known in Kenya.
Yes.
It's just about the state of a black person,
yes,
and how they are so human in their ways of loving people and welcoming people. But that ends up being a thing where it comes and sticks around and it pokes on our back once again, because we think everyone is the same as we are. So that's just one of the things that we as black people and have actually seen such a disadvantage, that people are not the same and people have different agendas.
Yes.
And while we do respect and have loved the Queen in Kenya, look what happened after their visit. You should just stop and think about that for a moment.
Yes, definitely something happens. Definitely there's some exchange of something. And then now the war starts, and then now all of a sudden we see the Mau Mau. Now this Mau Mau, we are told that, we did our own research and we found out that Mau Mau was not really a name. So where did Mau Mau come from? I'll ask you, Vuvu, because I know you are the Mama Nyambura in this play.
Yes,
and you're the
indeed.
One actually
so the women, were always there feeding their men, protecting their men in the ways that they could, while they were in their hiding places, plotting and planning how they can fight against the British. There were Zulus, as we know it. And so, this was almost like a signal that they are coming. So the words were Uma, Nimo, Kire. And that was just get out, they are coming. And then so British then might have overheard that, and then they couldn't say Uma, Nimo, Kire. So they just worded it Mama, and that's how they identified the warriors who were fighting. They were called the Mama.
Okay, so that's how it say that the Europeans coined. The Mau Mau was the name coined by the Europeans because of the misunderstanding of the word Uma, Nimo, Kire, Uma. So they just had Mau Mau. So that's how Mau Mau was actually born. So can you imagine? And that's how life, when there's misunderstanding, that's why you see.
Yeah, but there's a curious irony there. The word was Uma. And they turned it round and said Mau. Just as they turned the lives of Africa back.
Exactly.
Yes. So, well, it's history for you.
So they actually had a mission there. And then now we see the Mau Mau now is born. So these guys are now fighters. We call them freedom fighters. They now start fighting for us. So now that's where Kamau comes in as well. So now we start talking about the atrocities that were caused, because I think I said this last time. I spoke to a British person who actually went to Kenya. At that time he was only 17 years old, but of course when I went to see him he was like 70 something, and he was still angry with Kenyans, and he still called. I had to leave his office because I was looking at him and I'm thinking, you're such an old person. If I start being rude to you, it won't look nice. Now you'll have a reason to even call me a terrorist more. And he was so angry with Kenyans, and he was saying that we are terrorists, we are this and we are that. All these names he was calling me. And I said, with all due respect, sir, I only came here to ask you, how was your experience at that time? And I think you should be angry with the people who send you. So you should be angry with your own British government than getting angry with us, because you came to our country. We did not invite you to come and start taking from us. You came to our country. So there was so many atrocities that were caused within that time. So let's just tell us some of the atrocities, that, because I know your part is Kamau, and actually the things that you're talking about as Kamau are true facts that happen to real people.
Yeah. I think the man's angst or anger that's sustained till this day with such vehemence is just testament to the intensity that Kenyans fought for their independence. They were not timid, and they at a point it got to not even taking any prisoners. They met force with force, And the British all over the world, the colonial, I mean, the empire, they had the empire. I think that experience was quite outstanding. They never experienced such. And so that man, that guy you talked about may have gone, to so many of the colonies and never witnessed anything like that. And without that, Kenyans might not even have gotten their independence when they did. Now, I knew a bit of Kenyan history too. While in university, we read books by Ngugi wa Thiong'o. In fact, I took part in a play called The Trial of Dedan Kimathi. So Dedan Kimathi was quite popular in Nigerian universities and schools because it was an example of how not to tolerate colonialism. But then Kenyans, just as Africans, and as Vuvu had said earlier, Africans were peaceful. They welcomed you with open arms, and then you turned round and became the oppressor. And so there was so much havoc in the play. It's regarded as chaos and havoc. People were killed at will. There were situations when, during the attacks of the white women, they called Wazungus and Muzungus, pregnant women, pregnancies were opened, the people were raped, houses were burned. And so you didn't expect a people like that to sit quiet. For a long time, the Kenyans were quiet until they now started the movement. That things cannot go like this. We welcome these people with open arms. It is time we stand up to our country. And so the struggle started. And you might want to say Kamau is the hero of that play, but Kamau is not the hero of that play. The Kenyan people are the heroes of this play. Kamau represents the intensity with which they fought for independence. He represents the pride they took in their country, and he represents the commitment, the energy, and the will to be free. And so they fought. Kenyans did what the South Africans could not do for so many years. And that is why that man was still angry. Because, come to think of it, say it in another way, they were driven out of Kenya.
Yes.
Yes.
So, Vuvu, I know you're also playing Mama Nyambura in the play, and a lot of things that you're playing actually is based on true facts, because this play was actually, we did research. We went to Kenya and we spoke to Githua Kahengeri. And Githua Kahengeri is one of the Mau Mau fighters or freedom fighters who went through so much. He saw his son go through so much. He saw his dad go through so much. And he gave us the insight of what happened. So this, and even when we were talking to Githua Kahengeri, how many years later the man was still crying because they've not healed.
Yeah.
And that's because the Kenyan government forgot about them. The Kenyan government hasn't given them the, I'll say, counseling or recognition, or even their names mentioned, or we have the placards placed everywhere in Kenya, or, called like today Jamhuri. They should be called to the celebration. They should be lined up. People should see them. People should clap for them. You understand? They are not recognized at all. They've just been left. So when Githua Kahengeri was telling us about these atrocities, he's still crying. So I was thinking, is he crying? Because I didn't want to ask that stupid question, to be honest. Is he crying because of the atrocities that were caused, or is he crying because of how we've let them down? So I was just wondering, was it?
I would say both. Because on the one part, he remembered the sacrifices they made. He would have been remembering his colleagues, friends, brothers and sisters,
his son, his mom, mom
who never survived. And then coming to the present, that question of, is this what we fought for?
Yes.
Was there any need for it? No recognition, no commendation, no upholding. So I think he cried for both.
Okay. So Vuvu, what would you say as Mama Nyambura actually?
Yeah, for me, what stands out with one of the atrocities that took place, and really and truly, what makes it so painful is that the level of commitment to the struggle of independence, and then to sort of think, is this really what we fought for?
Yeah.
Because one of the women, I think she's still alive, and you will reference her name for me.
Yes.
She had her baby on her back, and she was going about the duties of delivering this food and servicing the warriors who were in hiding. And while she was not at that point in time going to the warriors, she was stopped along her way, and she had her baby on her back, and she was being told that she needs to tell where these warriors are hiding. And because of her commitment to the struggle and the oath of giving her life entirely and not sacrificing the position or anything that had to do with them being found, her baby was choked on her back, and her baby died on her back while she was standing there and still not saying. And now they said to her, go and bury this little Mau. And to think of, I actually even get goosebumps as I'm telling this, that as a woman, you carry a baby, to then carry your baby for 9 months and then have to go and bury your own baby because of your commitment to this struggle. And then today, the government doesn't even recognize the strength and the power of the sacrifice you've made.
And in fact, that lady that you just spoke about, her name was Rebecca Wanjira Sidai. She was from a place called Ndorobo. Yeah, Rebecca Wanjira Sidai, where the child was strangled. Carrying, so you're standing there. I wonder what she was doing. I wonder whether she covered her face when that was happening, whether she was screaming, whether she just stood still, numb, whether she fought. I don't even know what she went through, because I don't think anybody would survive that. It's bad already for a mother or a parent to bury their own children, regardless of how they died. And then now you're actually watching somebody strangling your six months old baby. So that woman, Rebecca Wanjira Sindai from Dorobo, she is one of the example, the reason why I am not happy today of how this thing has been happening, because the woman, you know the pain, just like Vuvu, you've said, the pain of a woman after carrying this child for 9 months, and then, so things like that are things that we should stand, and that's why I understand when you say that Githua Kahengeri, probably he's angry for both. Things like that. Even in his office, he has no picture of the president in his office. So I asked him why, and he told me the same thing. Why should I have a picture of somebody who do not even recognize my existence? Our existence. Why should I? He doesn't. And I went to his office in Nyeri and nothing is there. So it's that pain of him thinking of the women and the children, and you just mentioned here, women were pregnant and their stomach would be opened and their fetus will be fed to dogs, to the Muzungu dogs. Horrible things happened. Nobody talks about it. Why? We should teach our children and tell them what happened. And then we tell them this was what happened, but now this is a way forward.
Yeah.
And then now we also come to when now Barry, I think his name was Evelyn Baring. He was the Kenyan governor at the time. Can you imagine? A Kenyan governor at the time declared the state of emergency in Kenya. How would you even do that? Declare a state of emergency in someone else's country, that they were so peaceful together, Yeah,
he was the colonial governor, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so he was doing the bidding of his masters, the bidding of the empire. Yeah, so that is the justification. Because if he allowed things to deteriorate, he would be called to question.
Yes.
And he would be called to question. And at that time, you see, though the empire was alleged to have done so many atrocities, I am sure they had their supporters at home too. people that will be proud Britons who are glad that they were all over the world and subjugating people.
Yeah.
And if that guy was found culpable and maybe asked to go back to England, then he could even be attacked and be regarded as incompetent or a betrayer. And you can, whatever can happen to him can only be left to imagination. So he had to do what he's got to do.
Though he had to do. And then we now see the Mau Mau, and I know you are the one initiating this as Kamau. We see the Mau Mau taking the Kiapu. Okay, so the Kiapu was the
blood oath.
Yeah.
There is a drink. Yeah, it's a sacred drink mixed with blood.
Yes.
It's just a kind of blood oath, which is not new to any part of the world. There were blood oaths even in the Bible. Blood is sacred. And the reason why they had to do that was there are examples all over the world, especially during when Africa was under colonialism. And actually, even in this play, you find fifth columnists, people who would be used by the white guys or the Muzungus or the colonial masters to give information on people who are protesting, on people who are against the ideology, on people who might be a problem. And so they needed to checkmate that. They needed to be sure that whatever it is they're planning will not leak. And even if there might not be any metaphysical powers attached to such things, the belief that blood is sacred and you have sworn to blood, you will keep to your word. And that is what really happened. That was why the Mau Mau succeeded. Of course, there will be one or two betrayers, like we find. Is it the one who changed his name?
Yes, we have they are called the Home Guards. So we had the Home Guards.
they couldn't do anything. They couldn't stop the Mau Mau. They were railroaded when it got when they whatever hit the fan.
Yes.
Yeah, they had to run away. And so that was why the Mau Mau had to go to such lengths. And before the Mau Mau, even in other African communities where there was war, I remember, or I know of the many civil wars in what was then Yoruba land in Nigeria. Soldiers had to take blood oaths. It's like a sign of loyalty.
Yes, loyalty.
Assurance of loyalty. Because if you go beyond your duty and go back and talk to the enemies, you are putting lives at risk. You are putting communities, lives of the whole community are in danger.
Yes.
So it was happening and it happened. And right now I don't even see anything wrong in that, because without such hard stance, without such hard measures, Kenya may not be where it is today.
Yeah. Okay, Vuvu, again, we see, because we know in the play as well, we have home guards, and home guards were made of all the tribes in Kenya. So it was not just particular tribe. They were made up of all the tribes in Kenya, but these were the traitors. They were seen as traitors because they were the ones that are running back and saying, hey, this is where the Mau Mau are. So, Vuvu, what would you say about people like that? Because I know so in the play, he was killed, actually.
Sorry?
No, because in the play, he was actually, one of the home guards were actually killed.
Yes, and he plays John. So he plays John, and the oath then also carried a sense of it really carried a lot of fear if you go against it, because then if you had gone against it, what will happen is that there's a curse that is carried in the oath that will follow you and generations, that will follow not only you but generations to come. So then you cannot take the oath if you do not stand by what the oath is for. So we see John now, who a character who's John, not pretending to have taken the oath initially. And then when he's being interrogated and questioned upon what has happened to your family. This is what has happened to our families. What's happened to your family? And then that's when he now, he goes out and says, I didn't take the blood oath because he believes in the Wazungu God. Now, with the colonial regime came along the religion of Christianity. And so a lot of Africans then became part, believed in this God and Jesus and the story of Christianity. And then so that was John's escape, that he could not take blood, because the Wazungu gods and their teachings say they go against taking blood. So that's just one of the things. Then even now when we look at it and really try and think that, you know, it's really tainted in a way our understanding and our belief in God, because then these people came and they said it's God, that, you know, and so they came and they say they brought about God and religion of peace, but at the same time the acts in which they did not reflect God, you know. So in a way, you know, it really has brought about a bit of a confusion, you know, as it stands today in Christianity, on whether do you then view it in separation, and do we just say they used the Bible and they used it and interpreted for evil and to justify their actions, or do we say the Bible is also evil? So it's just really a bit of a confused state, you know, that the way in which this came about, because you see even John reflects that in that he's betraying his own, saying that he will not take this oath because he believes in the Wazungu God,
but yet
and the Wazungu God does not allow them to take blood. So
But
it's just plays out really clearly there.
But yet he's willing to betray his own people that he's lived with for all these years. And that's why I think there's somewhere that somebody says that we actually believed the lies that we were told rather than the truth that lived within us. Because I remember there's a part where Rehema says that we believed the lies that we were told rather than the truth that is in us. Because for us to get to that place, there's a lot of lies that were told, that were whispered in everybody's ear. And that's why you see that we had home guards who are ready and willing to betray their own people. For what? For the lies that they were told, rather than the truth that they knew and lived in them. So so what would you say about these home guards?
The phenomenon of home guards exists in every country that have dictatorial tendencies. Sometimes they call them palace guards. They are goons who have dedicated their existence to the ruler. Even if the training of the army is almost always patriotic and nationalistic. So sometimes the army, when they see things go wrong, might even go against whoever was the president or head of state. They want things right. They have a sense of justice. They have a sense of rightness. But then the president or prime minister or whatever, whoever the head of the country is, always add the palace guards. They are the last line of defense. If the army didn't do its bidding, the palace guards are ordered. So the home guards were just like, the palace guards were used by Trump. The palace guards were used by so many other, I might not readily recollect, but then they are there. They are the last line of defense, and they are personally dedicated to the maximum ruler. They do their bidding. So it is not, the betrayal is not when they start carrying information. The betrayal already existed by the time they signed up, because they knew what they were in for, and they will have pledged their loyalty. We do not know what loyalty structures they also put in place. It will be secret too, but they will have pledged their loyalty, which I'm sure would have come with certain threats. If you do this, not only you, your family might suffer this. Or if you do this, this will be your benefit. Monetary most of the time. Money, property, and so they are induced, they are enticed, they are deceived. And so,
Okay, and then now we come back to now talking about not all the Wazungus were actually bad. Because, you know, when I watch Kinta Kinte, they had to even, I think they had to stop it, because now there's a lot of black people who are really angry when they watch things like this. But what we don't realize is not all the Wazungus are bad. And I always say that means not all humans are bad, because we cannot put everybody in one box and say, oh, men are this, women are this, blacks are this, whites are this, Chinese. No, it's just humans. We might have more percentage that are really horrible, but we also have the ones that are actually sympathetic. So we have somebody like Colonel Arthur Young. So we see that Colonel Arthur Young, he actually had the nerve to even suggest that the police in Kenya should be given the same common law status of the constable as is enjoyed by the police in the United Kingdom. So Colonel Arthur Young was actually for the Kenyans, or for the black people, or for justice. Let's just say, probably not for Kenyans, but for justice. Yeah. He saw that the atrocities that were being caused was evil. And we also have Juanita Kabari. Juanita Kabari also was a woman who was dedicated to the Kenyan people, or for humanity, I would say. And we also have John Nottingham. In fact, John Nottingham and Juanita Kabari, they were buried in Kenya when they died. They say they don't want their body to be repatriated back. And John Nottingham also is one of the, so John Nottingham and Colonel Arthur Young are one of the Wazungus, and there were more. These are just the ones that we were told, but there were more. These are just the ones that they wrote a lot of petition to the British government. They wrote a lot of petition to the British saying the atrocities have been caused, and they also hid a lot of documentation. They hid a lot of documentation. All these atrocities that were happening, they didn't partake. But because, like you rightfully said, you don't know what is behind somebody betraying somebody, or you don't know why they have to do that. So even though they were not partaking in these things, they could not show it openly while they were in Kenya. But they brought all the letters, they brought all the proof to the British government when they came back, and they're like, this is what's happening, and this is wrong. This is not why we went to Kenya. Okay, fine, we did go to Kenya to take over, but people didn't have to die. Look at the flag now. There's a lot of blood. This is a symbol of blood shed for us. That's why you see in our flag there is more red, because that symbolizes the blood that was shed in Kenya when we were fighting for independence. So not all Wazungus are bad. What do you think about that statement?
Yeah, that is true. And as you said at the beginning, you can't put people in a box. There will be good ones, there will be bad ones.
Yes.
The unfortunate thing would happen when it is the bad ones that have the upper hand in anything. Just like even during the First World War, or the Second World War initiated by Hitler, there were Germans who were against him and who were campaigning, against his rule. And we find examples everywhere, even in ancient African communities too, where we had dictators, where you have a tribe dominating all the other tribes in that area. You still find people of that oppressor tribe joining the other people, who are the oppressed, in raising their voices and crying for justice. So that fact is true, that there would be, and I'm sure there were, good Muzungus, just as there were bad Kenyans too.
Exactly.
Yeah, like the betrayers were an example
the
too.
home guards,
yeah. So it's both sides. That is why when we condemn whatever atrocities the empire had done all over the world, we should still remember that we do not condemn the race English, we do not condemn the British people, but we condemn the empire operatives,
the office,
or the
itself,
office, for what they did.
Vuvu, do you have anything to say in regards to that as well? Because I know you're so passionate about this.
Yeah, it's just what makes us seem as though, one umbrella covers each and every Wazungu then is the impact, While it's a minority, of people who would have sat down and strategized on how to actually take over the world, and specifically now we're speaking of Kenya. So, but the impact of how many thousands of lives are impacted negatively by that is what, ends up making people really think that all the Wazungus are bad. But then at the same time, now, if we want to really go back and say it's not about a bad Wazungu, it's not about a good Wazungu, it's about that even the ones that are good, they are being human.
Yes.
They're actually doing the human right thing to do. So to be even, I don't take for granted that their actions would have had an impact in fighting for the struggle. But then it's what anybody should have done.
Yes.
Regardless of their race, because we are all human at the end of the day. And to do that to another human being, it's just inhuman. Yes. And that's the ones that should be condemned to say, what is wrong with you? What is wrong with you to go to such a state onto another human being. And whilst we will celebrate the ones that were good, they were just being human.
Thank you so much. And because of time as well, so I'm just going to go through our heroes that actually fought for our independence. So first of all, I'll start with Mzee Jomo Kenyatta. So Mzee Jomo Kenyatta was the first president of Kenya, and he died on the 22nd of August 1978, and he's remembered as the true son of Africa, because he also urged Kenyans to preserve their culture and heritage. So that is our Mzee Jomo Kenyatta, who was the first president of Kenya. And then we also have, just to mention a few, mentioning these names that don't mean that these are the people that actually just fought for independence and then that's it. We have more people who fought for independence. Their names, there are so many, so we're just mentioning a few. And if you want to know more about this history, also come and watch the play. This play is going to, we were meant to do it at the end of January, but because of COVID, again, the theater told us, can we extend the time? So we're going to do it on is it 27th or 29th? Either 27th or 29th of March, yeah. Right? That we're going to do it. 27 to 29. So what we've taken upon ourselves is to teach our children, or those people out there, our youths, the history of Kenya. Even though somebody said we don't want to know the history of Kenya. Can you imagine somebody had the guts to say something like that? But we'll still have to talk about the history of Kenya, because that is why we are who we are today. So now, I've said about the late Mzee Jomo Kenyatta, who was the first president of Kenya. And then I'm also going to talk about Jaramogi Oginga Odinga. Jaramogi Oginga Odinga was actually the first vice president of Kenya. He was in office in 1964 to 1966. Jaramogi Oginga Odinga was a Luo chieftain who became a prominent figure in Kenya's struggle for independence. He was born in Bondo, Sakwa, Central Nyanza province in October 1911, and he died on January 1994. In 1963, Jaramogi Oginga Odinga was offered an office to rule Kenya by the British government, which he declined, and I quote his words: "If I accept the offer by the British to form a government in Kenya, I will be a traitor, a home guard, and a betrayer of my people of Kenya. The British cannot elect me a leader while Mzee Jomo Kenyatta is still in prison. He should be released from Kapangkurya prison and he should be our leader." So that was from Jaramogi Oginga Odinga. And then we also have Joseph Murumbi, who was the second vice president of Kenya, in office May 1965 to December 1966. He died the year 1990. And then we have Stanley Mathenge. He became a leader of Mau Mau military unit in Nyeri district council in May 1953. He disappeared in 1955. Until this day, nobody knows his whereabouts. Of course, we know he's gone now, but we just don't even know where his grave is. And then we have Musa Mwariama, who believed in fighting for his motherland, and he helped his friend who had been bitten by a poisonous snake. He sucked the venom out of his leg, which sadly led to his death in 1989. So this guy fought the Mau Mau. That did not kill him, but and he loved his friend so much. That's to show you the kind of person he was. Like Vuvu is saying, we celebrate the good people because they are being human. That's what they should do. He sucked the venom out of his friend's leg. Probably if that was me, I would have run away. But look at what he did. This is a true fighter. And then we also have Warui Hitot. And Warui Hitot is also known as General China, right? I don't know why they gave him that name. And he took the Mau Mau oath in 1950 and subsequently became responsible for oathing. Maybe that's why they gave him General China. Oathing, and was an executor of anyone that was caught betraying their motherland. So any home guard that was caught, he will execute them. And he wrote the book, The Mau Mau in Action, in 1979, and he died in 1993. And then we have Ramogi Achieng Oneko, who was also one of the Kapangkurya Six. We have something called Kapangkurya Six. Achieng Oneko was one of them. And he died in the year 2007. And now we have Dedan Kimathi. Dedan Kimathi was born on the 31st October 1920 in Nyeri District, Central Province. He died on the 18th February 1957, just aged 36. Dedan Kimathi was just 36 years old when he died. This guy is known everywhere, so we have to respect him. So he was to hang by neck until death. That was his sentence. Can you imagine? Making him a symbol of Britain's brutal determination to maintain order in Kenya, and also establishing him as a met of Mau Mau movement. Colonial officers buried his body in an unmarked grave within the grounds of Kamiti Maximum Prison, security prison in Kenya. Until this day, his grave has not been found. And that's Dedan Kimathi, who stood at just the age of 36. He was killed. And then we also have Githua Kahengeri. He's still alive. And in 1950, he took an oath in support of the Mau Mau freedom movement. Subsequently, he was arrested alongside his father and sent to Athi River Camp and then to Takwa Detention Camp on Manda Island. In total, Gitu underwent 7 years of detention and forced labor. He has been a central figure in the Mau Mau quest for justice and continues to represent veterans and victims of torture as the president of the Mau Mau War Veterans Association to date. And now, we also have the six, they are called Kapangkurya Six. Okay, so the Kapangkurya Six were made up of Paul Ngei, who was imprisoned, Fred Kumbai, who was also imprisoned in 1952, our first president, Uhuru Kenyatta, Jomo Kenyatta, our first president. And then we also have Achieng Oneko. We have Kungu Karumba, we have Bildad Kangai, and then we have, those are the six. And we also had somebody else who I think he was Indianish. He was called Pio Gama Punto. He also fought for the Kenyan independence. And then we have one woman, Muthoni Kirima. So Muthoni Kirima was the only woman who was given field marshal, and she was part of the Mau Mau. Muthoni Kirima. She fought. And the white man was saying, the Muzungu was saying, who is this woman? She's supposed to be staying home, cooking for the children and looking after the family, because that is how they conditioned everything, that you sit here. And yet, the women who went out to give food to their Mau Mau, again, they were killed. They were killed. Their children were killed. Their houses were burned. So they became homeless. They were all put in one camp because they became homeless. So these are names that we should remember: Stanley Madhenge, Musa Mwariama, Muthoni Kirima, Wariu Itoti, General China, Kiruto. We also have Kurito Olekisio. Kirito Olekisio. We also have Kirito. We have all these people are people that we should always remember and mention their names, so that they are family, because I know they have family. They have a tree. They did not just, the leaves were not just cut. They have trees. So that means they have branches, and those are their children, their grandchildren. They're supposed to remember that our great grandparents fought for a better Kenya today. So guys, Vuvu, is there anything else you want to say before we can give everybody our hugs and kisses?
No, it's just worth remembering, that, the building blocks and the foundations of the Kenya that you see today, while it might not be yet a perfect Kenya, that is in the power of the current leaders, that led us down in different ways. But it's worth remembering that, a lot of blood was shed. And by you remembering the history of the ground that you stand on, it gives you that sense of identity and that sense of pride and confidence. When you go out into the world, you remember that I'm a warrior. When you face your own challenges in life, you remember that you're an overcomer. Yes. So this history is actually something that is supposed to enable you as an individual, and that should carry through in your life's activities and the way that you go about. So be proud.
Thank you very much, Vuvu. Yes, your last remarks.
Yeah, I think for the sake of young Kenyans, they should know that what we are saying is not that Kenyan independence was fought by only the Mau Mau. The Mau Mau were the military wing of the freedom fighting project. They also have the intellectual side. People like who did civil protests, who had their own kind of action against a colonial regime, like led by Jomo Kenyatta or the Odingas. So two hands. We have both sides have to work together for the progress of the continent and of Kenya.
Okay, so thank you very much, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. We say happy Jamhuri Day, even though it was on Sunday, but we are still celebrating our heroes. So thank you so much, and we'll see you again next week on Wednesday at 6:30 p.m. UK time and 9:30 Kenyan time, and we're going to give you details about the play next time. So until then, we'll say it can only be God. See ya.